Sarah Hancock here with Serendipity Health. Today we're going to talk about the dreaded plateau and the keto plateau and some things that you can do to bust past that. So when you're looking at fat and muscle loss and weight loss overall, there are so many factors that go into getting the results that you want. Exercise and the type of exercise that you do, the amount of stress that you're under, the amount and quality of sleep you get, how much protein you take in, and the calorie deficit that you're at when you're eating and with your nutrition. Now, most people eating keto, their primary goal is to lose fat and decrease fat. So when you're eating keto, you definitely want to start with your goal, know what your goal is, and have a reasonable plan, and then make sure that you have the right calorie deficit set up for your goals. So there are two primary things. If you're looking at a plateau, really with any type of diet, but especially with keto, the number one thing is if your body is decreasing the energy expenditures. So if you are burning less calories than you are taking in a day, you will gain weight and not lose weight. So that's that bottom line scientific ratio is you have to burn more calories than you eat to lose weight. So a lot of factors can go into how much energy your body is using, and our bodies are so individual in the way that the energy that we're using, that is a little bit of an individual thing to look at. And the second thing is a calorie deficit. As your weight decreases, then you also need less calories to maintain that calorie deficit that you've set up when you initially started eating keto. So usually it's your body is not burning as much energy, or you are not at that percentage of that calorie deficit that you initially started out for your goals to stay on track with your weight loss goals. Now, a lot of times people will start keto or a new diet and they'll have like great success right out of the gate where they lose 20 pounds in the first week, and then sometimes the results will slow down or kind of taper off, and that can be frustrating. But if you're still losing like 1 to 2 pounds a week, that's still awesome and that's amazing, and you're not doing anything wrong. Sometimes the rate at which you lose weight will not always stay consistent throughout this journey. So that's important to remember, that as long as you're still losing weight, that's okay. Like, don't lose faith in the process. Now, if you hit that point where you're like, okay, I'm stuck, I've reached that plateau, I'm not losing weight, I'm not on track, then we're going to talk about 8 things you can look at. Number 1, you need to track your calories and your carbs. A lot of times eating keto, people will just look at carbs and say, hey, I definitely am staying under 20 grams of carbs a day. What's going on? I'm not losing weight. Typically, when we start to eat low carb, it's more difficult to overeat if we're eating high fats and high protein, moderate protein. So usually when we're cutting carbs, that will decrease our hunger and we will just naturally have less calories. But it's also when you're eating high fat foods with keto, it's also easy to pack in a lot of calories in one sitting. So you also have to make sure that you're not going too high on your daily calories, or that will stall your weight loss goals. Number 2, you might need to look at recalculating your macros. As your weight decreases, then that calorie deficit that you started with gets smaller. And so then as your calorie deficit gets smaller, your weight loss will slow down. So eventually, once you started out as a deficit level, as you lose weight, that becomes a maintenance level. And if your goals are still to lose weight, then you have to revisit that calculator and put your current information in to get on track with the custom macros that you need to stay on track with your goals. I usually recommend that people go and revisit a keto calculator and recalculate their macros monthly, just to make sure you're on track with exactly where you're at right now and with your goals where you want to be moving forward. So number 3, you can take an intermittent break from that calorie reduction. Sometimes if people have big weight loss goals and you're eating at a high severe calorie deficit, so say you're having a 25-35% calorie reduction rate, sometimes your body can go into almost that starvation mode where it's holding on to those calories and it's not burning things the same. It changes your metabolism. So some people actually recommend taking a break from that severe rate where you maybe don't have that severe reduction all the time. Some people recommend 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. You can definitely do some research into breaking that up and changing the percentage of the reduction for your calories so that you can break through the plateau that way sometimes. So number 4, you may want to just decrease that calorie deficit. So like I said, if you have a severe calorie deficit, if you're having a 35% calorie deficit, that will also decrease your metabolic rate. Now, if your deficit can be covered by your fat stores in your body, then you're good. But as your fat stores decrease, then you're going to want your calorie deficit percentage to decrease as well so that it doesn't affect your metabolic rate. Because if your metabolic rate drops, then you're once again not burning those energy and calories the same way that you want to. So that's another thing you can look at. Number 5, you want to make sure you're eating the right amount of protein. If you're eating too much protein, that protein can be stored in your muscles as glycogen, and then that affects your body, has to use that up before it can revert to ketones. And if you're not eating enough protein, your body will actually start to break down muscle as part of the process of ketosis, which can interfere with your weight loss process. And number 6, this is super important. If you're eating a keto diet, you need to be consistent. If you are eating keto and relying strictly on nutritional ketosis to stay keto, if you have a cheat day, it will take you days up to a week to get back into ketosis. And if you think about that roller coaster with that just really sets your progress back. So if you can't stay nutritional ketosis, I would definitely recommend looking at some type of supplement for exogenous ketones. That is why I use ketones, because I'm not trying to lose weight, but I have a hard time consistently all the time staying under 20 grams of carbs. So you want to stay consistent with the keto. They say that if you have one cheat day and you're eating keto and you weigh yourself, you can actually gain 4 to 6 pounds of water weight from a cheat day a couple of days ago. That's all just those carbohydrates in your cells holding on to fluids from the change in your diet. So it's important to stay consistent when you're eating keto. Number 7, get some exercise. With keto, they recommend weight training. Best practice is 2 to 4 times a week of weightlifting, and then moderate aerobic activity a couple times a week. The more you can get active, the more you're burning calories, and the more that offsets that ratio for you. Number 8, the last thing, you might want to try intermittent fasting. So fasting allows your blood sugar and your insulin levels to get down to that baseline level, and then when you're in that fasting state, your body will revert to burning ketones, and it'll just shift you over to that fat burning metabolism. Now sometimes for some people that can just make the total difference in breaking through a plateau. But with fasting, you typically will eat less and be more satisfied. So it also makes it easier to stay on track with your macros and to hit that calorie deficit. So it's always frustrating when you hit a plateau, but I think most of the time it can be, you can problem solve the situation and say, hey, this is where I'm at, what do I need to do to fix it? So I think that's the awesome part about it, and those 8 tips I think should help most anybody bust through their plateau and keep on the way with keto.